Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Today, I have several guests here to talk to you about courage and conviction, as they have some new finished whiskey releases, and I'm pretty excited about them. As soon as I kind of got this little guy in the mail, I actually picked out a couple of whiskey tubers that I really wanted to talk about this with, and then I figured I'd bring somebody knowledgeable about it and have Amanda on as well. So, welcome, guys, to the stream.
Hey, thank you for having us.
So let me just real quick introduce Amanda here. She works at Virginia Distillery Co. As a blender and the education manager of the, what was it, sensory?
Yeah, you said created a sensory panel, so I got to take charge of that. Yeah.
As soon as you got to sensory earlier, I was like, I'm going to forget the next one.
Wear a lot of hats. You do too.
Awesome. So, in other words, she knows what she's talking about, and she's probably got a pretty good nose on her. So, so we're going to walk through a few of these whiskeys and just kind of bring it up right at the top of the hour. I'll leave this up here so people can see. So, I'm going to be giving away a bottle of any one of these three: the sherry, the bourbon, or the Cuvee cask finishes. Typical rules apply: $5 super chat gets you an entry, and any denomination of that gets you multiple entries. So, whatever you guys want. So, Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about Virginia Distillery Co. and why you guys decided to kind of do this? I mean, you had your flagship for a while, so.
It's true. We are the largest American Single Malt company by the volume we're producing right now, which is really exciting. The capacity we have to grow is really phenomenal. We were founded by, of all things, an Irishman, Dr. George Moore. He came over with a scholarship to George Washington University in the 70s and got into the tech world, helped to integrate caller ID, but his one passion was collecting and drinking single malts. And back at that time, there weren't American single malts to be had. St. George spirits didn't come on the scene for a while after that. And, it's been a slow growth ever since. So we're making his dream come true. His son, Gareth, is our CEO. His mother, Gareth's mother, George's wife, is on our board. And it's just been really fun to be part of this journey. And one of George's sayings was, have the courage of your convictions. So he didn't create it, but he definitely believed it and said it all the time. So we've been distilling and aging our single malt since 2015. And we plan to release it into 2020. And of course, the world took a crazy turn. And we just thought, we've got this belief right here. And we think it's going to be phenomenal. So we went ahead and released it. And we're now on the third bottling run of this because we've already pretty much sold out of the first two batches. So
excellent.
That's us in a nutshell.
Nice. Now, you guys make all of your own stuff, right? You mill your own grains. You do all the
Yeah. When we were starting out, we did Virginia Highland whiskey, or VHW, and that was where we brought over whiskey that had distilled and aged for several years in Scotland and married it with our own whiskey that had been distilling and aging here. But at that time, it was like 2 years. We're aging up now, and we finished those two whiskeys to really integrate them together. But our single malt line, Courage and Conviction, is distilled, aged, bottled, all on site.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
I remember, did the SWA give you a little trouble about the Highland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did. They did not like the word Highland in there, even though there's a Highland County right by our distillery.
No. Nice try.
Yep. And we've always said, we're an American whiskey. We're very proud of that fact. And we think that the Virginia climate really sets us apart. So we were happy to just say, we'll work with you and we want to be very transparent from the get-go. So that was resolved pretty quickly.
Who cares what the SWA thinks? Bunch of stodgy old men.
They're actually kind of impressed that they felt, enough of a concern or threat by us in the first place. We're like, okay, well.
They've got their Google alerts on for just the word Highland or, space any of that stuff. Get them.
Well, they slapped a lawsuit on a distillery in Canada for having Glen in the name, even though that's where it was located.
I heard about that. Yeah, totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, I like to always just jump right into a whiskey. I feel like it makes conversation much more interesting. So what would you like to start with?
Ooh, I would start with the tin or the little green box. This is our bourbon cask, Courage and Conviction. So yeah, all of this is going to be an American single malt, water, yeast, and barley. The one thing that makes this distillate different is the cask type that it's aged in. And so roughly 50% of the whiskey we have aging on site is aging in former bourbon casks that came from Brown-Forman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we doing mostly first fill, or are you doing second fill?
This is first fill. So yeah, we call these the FB1s. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing with all these whiskeys is they're all 92 proof, non-chill filtered, no caramel coloring added. So these are the smallest barrels we age in, the 53-gallon ones.
All right. Well, thank you for, not doing 40%. Appreciate it.
No, I want to give you room to, if you want to add water or have it on the rocks, like it needs to flex really well. And I don't want to, yeah.
Well, as someone that's pretty new to American Single Malt, just in general, like I'm typically bourbon kind of rye guy, but I like exploring. There's a couple different ones out here on the West Coast. Is that something they normally like? Y'all are allowed to, if you wanted to, like add coloring and stuff. Like that's legally allowed in America.
It is. Some whiskey distilleries do that. Typically, you see it more in Scotland because they want to. I mean, there's just not as much interaction between the whiskey and the barrels, so they want to make that color look a lot more intense to make it feel older, or to develop consistency, as they say. But yeah, we don't. And I have to give a shout out to some of the American single malt distilleries on the West Coast. There's some really good ones out there.
Those are some of the first ones I tried. I'm excited to see that there's some on the East Coast as well.
Yeah.
I wish there were some closer to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do actually have every intention of heading down to you guys once it's a little bit more practical.
Yeah, we'd love that.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I really took a liking. You know what I think it is? Despite the whiskey, like nothing, like whiskey aside, your bottle is like the tallest one I have on my shelf. And I personally relate to that because I'm huge.
We have a nickname for it. I don't think I've ever said this outside of like the internal team, but we call it the Superman bottle.
The Superman
with the blue, especially like the one behind me.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I've got mine right there.
The tube does stand out for sure.
The big blue Boy Scout kind of thing, yeah.
Yep. What do you guys get on the nose?
For me, like immediately it was citrusy, but then I kind of went more like a butterscotch, maybe toffee or something like that. But almost like a candy, sugary something.
Yeah, I was surprised by how sweet and fruity it was up front. Like, especially because I was thinking bourbon cask, it was going to highlight more of the oak, and the vanilla. But I get a lot of fruitiness. I'm not quite sure exactly what yet, but
no, Clifton, you're spot on. I think a lot of people might expect this to taste like a bourbon, but I wanted to start with this because having this in Kentucky, especially, but anywhere they're making bourbon in the U.S., by law they have to use new charred oak, and so all the harsher tannins have been stripped out. For us by the time we get them. And we love that. We love a more general interaction with the whiskey because the fermentation notes still shine through. That's the fruity notes. And you still get the malt character. It's not masked at all. So candied orange peel is one thing I always write when I'm doing nosing of this. So spot on.
I was thinking I was getting a little bit of that kind of tropical, maybe like a tangerine pineapple thing. That
peach. I'm getting like peachiness too.
Malt Irish whiskey sometimes, but this has a little bit more of a. I was gonna say, unlike a purely tropical thing, this has a little bit more of that malty, toffee-y, slightly almost sawdusty, but not quite kind of smell to it. Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm walking through our fermentation tanks and really inhaling, I get a lot of banana nut bread. And I feel like that comes through as like a vanilla banana custard note for this one.
I could see that. Yeah.
There's also
those Brown Foreman barrels.
Yep.
Are you doing open fermentation or?
No, we use stainless steel tanks. They're sealed up. And what's really cool, I get geeky about this. We are situated on almost exactly 100 acres, and it's mostly trees. So the byproduct of fermentation, well, one of them is CO2, and we just pump that out from the tanks outside, and we've got trees that just are like shooting up like mad, and of course converting it over to oxygen, so it's super symbiotic, and I get geeky about it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Hear that, everybody? Pump CO2 into the ozone, and you'll have taller trees.
There's a reason we're out in the country. Great water, great trees.
No, that's pretty funny, actually. It's interesting that you can even see that. All right, well, I don't want to make us just sit here and smell all those. This is actually, I do want to talk more about the nose sec, but let's just give a quick cheers. Congratulations on the new release.
Yeah,
the new releases. So awesome. Okay, I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
That's a lot more like honey on the taste. A very honey and floral kind of thing. The nose for me reminded me more Irish single malt with that tropical fruit, but the taste, little more towards the Scottish space side, kind of that toffee, caramel, heather, floral nose.
Yeah, when you said toffee caramel, I'm thinking of like the sugar daddy candies. Like there's like that rich caramel kind of thing. I'm getting a little bit of that.
Sponge sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I actually I just had some sugar babies over the weekend. So it's funny that you say that. It's kind of fresh in my memory as well. You know what I love about this is, a lot of times when people are doing ex-bourbon barrels or whatever, they take more, or it seems like they take more of the tannic oaky side of that, or it imparts a lot more, whereas this is way lighter than I was expecting, both on the nose and the taste. Like it's really hammering in the fruity, florally kind of. I mean, I'm definitely getting some of that butterscotch too, but it's lighter than I was expecting by a lot. So very surprising.
I love that you were mentioning Irish whiskeys for this. At first in my head, I was comparing it a lot to more delicate Japanese single malt, just because you get so much floral, you still get the malt character coming through, but there's a nice spice on the palate at the end. So it's not like you forget what you're drinking; it sticks with you, which I love.
Yeah, speaking of Irish, I mean, it kind of gets buttery. I don't know if that like on texture wise, like the finish is a little like buttery.
Yes.
I like that.
That's my goal, to have that creamy mouthfeel that's not watery or sharp or angular. It just, buttery and rich. And we have a trick for that.
Okay.
So,
as we all put our glasses down, do tell.
We do a very slow reduction. So we bottle our Courage and Conviction line at 92 proof. And typically you see that can happen. You just add the water real quickly before bottling. We take months. We do a minimum and a maximum threshold really at 1% a week on Wednesdays. Brian Hersey is our cellar and warehouse manager, and he's the one who is there every Wednesday, and he does a circulation. It's very gradual. We learned from actually my mentor, Nancy Fraley. She said sometimes you can have problems when you do a lot of water reductions very quickly, and we're just given enough freedom to work on this whiskey for months at a time. So we do that, and we fight things like saponification, and it's really.
I was just about to ask. Yeah, I've heard that when you proof down very quickly, you get that soapy saponification note. Yeah. Yeah,
and it can feel sharp or angular with the mouthfeel, and we knew from the get-go that mouthfeel was important. So
for sure.
I like the term angular. I don't think I've ever actually heard anybody else use that, but it's very vivid.
You might have made it up.
Yeah, well,
you know what I meant, right?
You should use it. Yeah. I mean, sharp I've heard, but angular is like that 1x. It's like looking up the thesaurus when you just don't want to say sharp.
I think English Rangers, so.
Real quick, thanks to Two Wheels Down and Jeffrey for the super chats. Appreciate that. Anybody who puts in $5 I'm gonna give away a bottle by the end of the stream. One of the finishes, so we'll figure it out. So you said that these are coming out right now, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just released in the state of Virginia, and we're expanding to 40 plus states. We have an online retail partner, Mash and Grape. So thanks to working with them, people can purchase them for shipping. And it's really great because, I mean, in the world we live in right now, being able to share single malt with people all over the country is a gift.
Yeah. It's not easy to ship alcohol, like from my own point of view. You gotta kind of ship olive oil, or other hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
I think you might have already said, but what variety of barley are you using for these?
We use 2-row spring barley. So the idea there is quality over quantity, so we're not using a 6-row. And we work with over 100 different farmers through the North and Midwest, all the way up to the southern reaches of Canada now. We've been experimenting growing some of our own on site, but the nitrogen levels in Virginia soil are crazy high. So it's fine for growing barley for beer, but for the quantity we need, and of course, working with that nitrogen content in the soil, we're lucky to have so many great farmers to work with.
Oh, nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah. We're very pleased. Oh, and something else cool.
Like, I'm catching myself smelling it more than I'm drinking it.
I know.
I can spend an hour just coming back because I feel like our whiskeys just keep opening up and have a lot of layers. So if you want to set it aside, move on, and then you can come back and do like a side by side.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
let's do that. Because I'm excited for the sherry. For the sherry.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Are we going to? So we're going to the sherry next, right?
Sherry's perfect. Yeah. Sherry we get really geeky about because, you've had your share of sherry aged whiskeys before. The Macallan's a great example. But we use 3 different types of sherry casks: Fino, Oloroso, and PX. So if you're nosing and you get a lot of tropical notes, typically that's what I expect from Fino, because Fino Palomino is the main grape used in sherry production in Spain. And we were told it was going to be a late bloomer. And I was like, I don't know what you mean, but okay, we'll see. And for the first 3 or 4 years aging this whiskey, it was just what you'd expect. But if you, you guys have to come out on site and I'll have you pull in samples, but we're starting to get what I'm calling honey nut Cheerio casks from Fino.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's up my alley.
Right?
Well, that's funny you mention that, because I think sherry is what I gravitate towards. Like if I'm discovering like a new, typically with Scotch, but I'll lean towards the sherry casks. So I'm excited to see how that translates to an American single malt.
Yeah. Well, curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay. I am impressed. I think I've only had about 2 whiskeys that used Fino. I think Lafroig did one, and maybe Cavallon. Pretty much nobody's using.
I was going to say that I've never heard of Fino until today.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. We also use Oloroso, and those sherries are aged without that protective blanket of yeast or floor on top, so it's much more oxidized. So if you're getting more nutty notes, like candied hazelnut, I like to credit those casks.
Wow, that's dark on the nose.
Yeah, this is much nuttier than I was expecting for Pedro Jimenez. This is much nuttier, darker, fuller.
Yes.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be jammy, like Macallan or sulfury, but this is
like a chocolate bar, like a dark chocolate or something.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, you mentioned the Pedro Jimenez, and so those sherries are made by letting the grapes dry out in the sun to really concentrate the sugars. And so if you're nosing and getting like caramelized plum and golden fig notes, just really decadent and sweet, I like to credit the PX casks for that. So it's a lot of complexity from the 3 different types, hopefully.
So I don't know if I'm just playing off what you said, Clifton, but as soon as you said chocolate, I started thinking, you ever have like a chocolate bar that had the dried cranberries and like almonds in it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was thinking, because I didn't mean just like plain chocolate. It was like a candy bar, but that sounds right up like what I'm noticing.
Yeah, like I'm thinking dark chocolate. I realize it's a stretch. This is the part of the fun, but
no, I like it.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah.
No, there definitely is there's a golden raisin element, but it's kind of, it hasn't taken over. And I think that with a lot of PX casks, I feel like it gets super jammy super easily.
Yeah.
And this one hasn't. This one is playing nicely with the nuttiness and the kind of that organic Fino.
Yeah, it's extremely angular for the. I'm stealing it. No, but it is just way more. I'm trying to think of the best word here. It has way more influence from the cask than I was expecting. Again, I just feel like so many people, it's the thing to finish in sherry, right? And when I saw that you guys were doing the new ones, actually, it was a while back on Instagram. I even was just like, I'm really excited for these. And then in parentheses, I'm not asking for a sample. but I really was, because I knew how good your other one was. And I was just like, I had faith. And I'm so far very happy. So
Good.
Speaking of samples, though, you guys send your stuff in one of the sickest little compartments I've ever seen.
So cool. This is like a styrofoamy, like.
Yeah, like the felty soft. This is one of the best versions of like sample shipping I've seen ever.
As soon as I got it, I emailed them back. I'm like, this is the coolest sample kit I've ever gotten. Do y'all sell that, or is that just like a thing?
It's just for press and opportunities like this. I have to give a shout out to Marlene Steiner. She's our brand director, and she puts in so much care and thought into everything. She really gives 110%. So I'll let her know you liked it.
Yeah, it's cool. I as soon as I opened it, I was just like, that's.
Okay,
the only other one I could think of was even close was New Riff. New Riff did a really cool one as well. I don't know if you've had any of their stuff, Amanda. It actually wasn't as cool as this, but they also did kind of like the foam insert and stuff. So
nice.
But now over the top. Anyway, all right, let's have a sip of this. So.
Okay.
Ed and I went a little early.
We jumped.
That's okay.
I know that I almost said it a minute ago. I'm like, oh no, set it down.
Oh no, just go it down. It's fine. That's complex. That's going to take a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, the finish is really long on that though. Like it's still going.
How old is this? Out of curiosity, I don't
It's
actually.
just about 4 years old.
4
Do you want to
years.
know how geeky we are?
Very
Oh my
much
God.
so.
This reminds me of like the 12 or 16-year-old Mortlock.
Yeah.
This
so
is old beyond its years.
yeah, I really credit Virginia for that. The climate is insane. So have you guys been to Scotland, Ireland?
I haven't.
Not yet?
Been to
Not yet.
Ireland.
Okay. The weather's really consistent, especially in the Highlands. We have a joke. If you're going, it doesn't matter if it's January or July, you can pack the same suitcase. And typically when I check the weather app, it'll show like up in the Speyside region, especially, it'll be like, oh yeah, 4-degree variance within 24 hours. So
Sounds kind of like Los
nothing
Angeles.
like Virginia.
Los Angeles is a little bit like that, but not quite.
Nice. Yeah. So for people watching, yeah, in hot weather, barrel staves expand and soak up the spirit. In cold weather, they contract and push it back out. So if you're in Scotland, it's spring, summer, fall, winter. Virginia, it's insane. We had flurries yesterday, and then it hit 70. So we can
Sure.
see 40, 50, even 60-degree variance within 24 hours. So our barrel staves are getting a workout. So we get more color, more flavor very naturally, very quickly. The only downside is we have evaporation too. So in Scotland, you typically lose maybe 2% your first year, then it goes down to 1%, and it can even plateau with nothing after a while. Our first year, we saw 6 and 7% loss.
Yeah,
Out of a lot of casks. Yeah.
at a brand new distillery, I bet you guys were like, "Oh no."
Yeah. Thankfully, it's gone down a little bit, but it was a big learning curve for us too. So it's not a level playing field, and so for us, 1 year of aging can be the equivalent of a 6-year-old Scotch, which is phenomenal. But also, it means we could wait 20, 25 years and have a bone dry cask. So our motto is we let the whiskey tell us when it's ready. And what you're drinking now is all pretty close to the 4-year mark. We now have whiskey that's over 5 years old in cask, which is really great. So, yeah.
So even with letting the whiskey tell you when it's ready, do you guys have plans to, like, are you trying to age for a certain age statement? Just as an experiment?
Yeah, I think we take every year as an experiment just to see how things are progressing because we are so new. We only turned on our stills in the fall of 2015. So everything has just been maturing since then. For us, I think we want to be liberated from ever having to hit some prescribed age statement, but it would be really fun to commemorate things. So I imagine we'll do some special releases that are like, this is 5 years, this is 10, things like that. And I mentioned being geeky. We created a website. It's batch.info. There's no .com or anything. Just
I
BHC.
saw that and I was like, you
Yeah.
surely made a typo there. And I'm like, no, I tried it. It worked. I was like, oh, okay.
It works. Yeah. We just thought it'd be fun for people to see our process. So, for example, batch 1 of Courage and Conviction, I picked 37 casks, and you can see the breakdown, the ratio of how many were former bourbon casks and how many were the sherry casks. 6, 2 of each type. How many were the Cuvee casks? 10. And you can see things like how long they were in the cask when they were bottled, all of those things, even evaporation rates and what the weather was like.
Cool.
Now, with the original Courage and Conviction, like, how did you? I always ask this question. I never really think anybody has a great answer. Like, how did you determine that you wanted to do these specific things? Like, what was your process of putting together the original product?
The original recipe was inspired by Dr. Jim Swan. He was this maturation expert, and I think, Ed, you mentioned Cavalon? Yeah. He was really a big part of getting them up and running. He was just an incredible mentor to a lot of distilleries, and I got to work with him when I first came on board at the distillery, and he told me a couple things. He taught us first that Virginia is a 4-season subtropical humid climate, and so we need to treat our whiskey to match the environment and not try to manipulate anything the other way around. So we don't do anything like petite barrel age. We don't climate control the whiskey. We don't turn the barrels, nothing like that. But he also helped us with the barrel recipe itself. And so the next whiskey that we're going to try, the Cuvee cask, he created that in collaboration with a couple guys in Spain because he was working at Cavalon and they wanted to use former bourbon casks. And at that time, it was all being soaked up by the Scotch industry. They were all shipping up to like the Speyside cooperage. So he reached out to some friends at some cooperages in Spain, and they came up with this process of taking a premium wine cask and breaking it apart, shaving the inside staves, toasting it, blasting it with a quick char, and then coopering it back together. Mm-hmm. And so he gave us that recipe, and we were able to form really great relationships with the cooperages in Spain. So roughly 25% of the whiskey we have aging right now is in those casks, which is super cool. And that's all thanks to him.
I got to say, I'm super excited for your STR.
Yeah.
You've got big shoes to fill, though. Some of my favorite whiskeys have been STR. So I'm saying I'm excited, but you got some competition. I'll tell you right now.
That's great.
Before I move away from this one, I was going to say, like, a note that I don't typically get on a whiskey that's coming to mind is like a marzipan kind of note on this. The sherry one. I don't get that often.
I agree. We absolutely gotten that. Mostly from the Pheno casks.
Yeah, it's like that. And then I always want to say peach rings. I know I said peach on the first one, but this was like peach rings candy. I don't know. I like it.
Actually, I know what you're talking about with the peach. I feel like either you and I are influencing each other a lot, or we have a very similar palate. Because I totally,
so.
Yeah. You've been eating your candy. Well done.
Yeah, we were getting it the whole time.
I am a man who enjoys
that finish. For me, I'm getting a lot of that, the bittersweet chocolate with the cranberry.
Yes,
definitely. And it's interesting. I found that with a lot of American single malt. I assume that's mostly coincidence, but I've found that with St. George and who's the guys out in Seattle? I'm trying to remember. Westland. Thank you.
They're great. Yeah.
That was one of the first ones. I didn't want to mention them by name, but yeah, that was one of the first.
They're lovely. Yeah. We work with them. We formed an American Single Malt Commission together. So we're founding members with Westland and some other phenomenal distilleries. So I have lots of love for Balcones in Texas and Stranahan's in Colorado. It's kind of like the regions of Scotland. You know, you've got your different whiskeys there. And I think the same is true. The U.S. is even larger geographically. So
I was going to say, like, to some degree, it's interesting to see everybody trying to say, like, you know, it's a Virginia whiskey or a Texas whiskey, but like, honestly, there's so much space in the U.S. You really do have a lot of microclimates around. It could make sense, and you will get a similar profile, but unique, I should say.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
Speaking of the American Single Malt Commission, I would love to pick your brain because I know the current definition, as proposed, includes column distillation and pot distillation. What's the thinking there to allow both?
Yeah, some of the members who are producing American Single Malt like to use column stills. So it's hard because I love copper pot stills. In that sense, I'm very traditional, and I know the character of the distillate that's going to come out from them. With a column still or even a hybrid still, you lose a bit of that. But I just know that they're working to make really good whiskeys too, and we don't want to handcuff them at all in any way. But we do want to be very clear so consumers know what to expect when they see American Single Malt. They know what they're getting. I think that's the most important thing. So having as much transparency as possible is always ideal to me. And if it gets us closer to getting that recognition by the TTB, I'll take it. I can't speak for everyone else. We're very traditional in the fact that we use copper pot stills, but that's a lot of work. I mean, it's cheaper and easier to use a grain still, and they can still make delicious whiskey from it. So, or a column still.
Sure.
Oh, so let's explore that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
Oh no, follow-up question.
Yeah,
do
please.
you think there ought to be a maximum distillation proof for American Single Malt, or do you think people should just be allowed to run wild?
There will be, because by the TTB, once you get a certain level, it becomes a neutral grain spirit.
Oh, sure. So, but I mean, like, should we do like 80% like bourbon, or should we allow up to 94 point?
Yeah. I guess I feel more strongly about having the minimum than the maximum. That's, I mean, we know what we like, and we have that window that we're very happy with. So, yeah, I know that people, especially like say Balcones in Texas, they age mostly 1 year. I mean, they've got that one loud and proud on their label, and because of the climate they're in being so hot and arid, it just, that would impact them too. For us being more humid, in that breathing in and out process as the whiskey's aging, a lot of times people don't realize this, but if it's in a really humid environment, the water can make its way in through the staves just as much as the alcohol can make its way out. So depending on where you're located, you might have a reason to need it to be distilled to a higher proof before bottling or lower.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for indulging my nerdy side. I appreciate it.
I like it. It's great.
So one thing I was going to ask is actually just along these same lines. So I know I reached out to you when we were going on Ed's stream just to kind of pick your brain about some stuff because you guys have always kind of answered me. So
Love it.
and obviously very knowledgeable. So what is your kind of ideal definition of an American single malt? So what are you guys pushing or not pushing? You know what I mean? Like what are you trying to accomplish?
Bare minimum is distilled and aged at a single distillery from 100% malted barley. Mm-hmm. I like and would support if they wanted to push to bottled there as well. I know that's not ideal for a lot of American single malt distilleries, so I think that's worth compromising on. But, same thing for age statements. I'd like to hit the 3-year minimum, but I understand how delicious and great. I mean, we're talking about balcones, so I understand keeping that a little more vague too. So I guess once you get beyond the bare minimum, I see everybody's side, and I do feel conflicted because we're a different world than Scotland or Ireland or England. So, and, we do have to deal with big climate issues too, depending on where we're located.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, from my personal point of view, I'm kind of with you. Like the age statement is less important to me. I guess I see the benefit of not necessarily requiring the age statement.
Mm-hmm.
And Balcones is kind of a perfect example. So I'm glad you brought that up. Is they do so many weird, fun stuff, and some of the smaller distilleries, just by virtue of this booming market that we have, people are trying to get a foothold in, make some money, and can't wait years and years and years. They're not an established for the last 200 years brand. So,
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
And we want to be supportive of those distilleries. I think a rising tide floats all ships. So if we can help them, why not?
Sure.
So I think poor Ed is going to freak out if we don't get to the Cuvee.
Let's do it.
Can we do the Cuvee? I would love to do the Cuvee. I'm very excited about this one.
So Ed, I know you like Kavlon. What are the other STR casks that you like?
Kilchoman, the STR is probably, Kilchoman STR is second only to their Kilchoman Sauternes in my book, but they're both excellent. Those are two of my favorite whiskeys ever. So,
love it.
Yeah. And I assume, there's really no peating in this. So I'm interested to see how this STR stands up with an unpeated malt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the opposite. I've never had a Cuvee cask, as far as I know. I probably have, but didn't really know what it was. So
nice. Yeah, in the industry they call it STR for shave, toast, repair, rechar.
I was like, I'll look that up later. I don't want to ask.
No, you're good. Most people don't know. We call it Cuvee because Cuvee. Most people think champagne, but it also refers to the first run off a premium red wine blend in Spain, which is what these casks were in their first life. So we got really nerdy.
I gotta say, this is already heading in the right direction for me. It's got that little bit of like a black currant kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny. I didn't know what black currant tasted like, and then one of my viewers sent me some mints just off of Amazon. They were like really good, and I was like, oh, okay, this is not at all what I would have thought. I thought it would have been more like a licorice-y kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah,
is it like fig or wait, am I? Maybe I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know how I would describe it. Which
okay, because you know what? I need to buy those mints. Send me a link later.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like
kind
of like a blackberry, but richer, I guess.
And a little herbaceous to me too. Like it's not cloyingly sweet. It's more earthy fruit.
Yeah, well, I'm not familiar with that. I was going to say like a black cherry kind of note.
I get black cherry on this all the time, and raspberry too.
Yeah, just all kinds of berries, really. This is really, I like this a lot.
Mm-hmm. I guess definitely my favorite nose so far.
I've found that as the channel has progressed, I tried really, really hard at the beginning to really put my finger on a lot of nosing and tasting, and now lately I'm just like, I really like this.
That's what matters most.
That's good.
Yeah, this is the one where I get also like a toasted pecan and cocoa note too, which I think it plays well with the red fruit.
I have a feeling I'll get there, but at the moment it's still just all berries for me. So
yeah, I was going to say I just went back and tried just nosed the other ones that we've already did. They've changed so much. The bourbon has changed the most of all of them. It's like now the wood is what's standing out to me, like that. Like
give that a go. It's
good. It's true.
Yeah, actually, the
Oh,
bourbon
wow.
is kind of going more for like a toasted marshmallow for me.
Mhm.
I was about to say the bourbon is like s'mores.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
I get
the bourbon is way
sometimes.
s'moresy.
Toasted coconut and almost milk chocolate sometimes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I
And
actually,
graham cracker.
I genuinely
back-
don't know. Oh, sorry. Good.
Oh no, please. You're
I don't
showman.
know which one of these I would tell the audience to be looking for yet. Like
I
they're
haven't
all
tried
really,
this one yet, so
I know. I don't know. I just love trying a bunch. I nerd out about doing different finishes of the same kind of thing.
Mhm.
I find that to be a really educational experience. So this is really fun for me.
Oh man. Okay.
Can we
Don't
drink
mind
it?
us as we're all just smelling.
Man, taste it.
Wow, really light and just.
Mm.
I got to think about that one for a minute. Way more delicate than I was expecting. Although I should have expected that off the nose. So
I got a burst of blood orange, which I've gotten before, but that like really stood out to me this time.
I'm impressed at how long the finishes are on all three of these whiskeys.
Oh yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's good.
I got
Yeah,
a
this-
weirdly specific tasting note. It reminds me, my old man always makes chantilly cream for Thanksgiving, and we put it over, fruit pies or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's what this is reminding me of.
What
Like,
kind of cream?
Little bit of that sweet creaminess, then the dark red fruit, little bit of caramel. It's good shit. Sorry, excuse me.
No,
No,
I love it.
You can try. I love how on just a whiskey channel, all of us sitting here being quiet for like 30 seconds is not atypical. That's
Well, I mean, coming from someone that
watch
hasn't
us
had it,
roll.
that hasn't had a Cuvée cask before, it's a lot more what I thought the sherry was going to be. It's still that like really bright, little floral, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need a palate cleanser after the sherry though, before going into this.
Yeah.
So I know a couple people in the chat bought the Cuvée. I'm saying that wrong, huh? It's not Cuvée. It's
Cuvée.
It's Cuvée. Okay,
Cuvée.
I was saying Cuvée. So
I was saying
Cuvée.
Cuvée too.
Okay, so Cuvée. A couple people have bought this. One of them today, actually, for the stream.
Nice.
So
Cheers.
yeah, right.
I love
thank
it.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a fun finish on this that's a little different from the other two. I feel like I'm getting a lot of that kind of toffee malt forward element. I definitely get a citrusy thing on the nose, creamy and fruity on the taste, and then it fades into that kind of that malty toffiness. I'm gonna do that weird thing where I pour it on my hands and smell it. So
Go
excuse
for
me.
it.
Are you gonna rub them together and then?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Alright,
doing.
cool. I think I'll join you actually. I forget who I learned that from. It might have actually been Ralphie.
So Jeffrey had a question about if we have any plans to put a cask strength out. We do of the Cuvée cask types. So I've already selected 7 casks. We might even need to do more than that, but they're going to be released this fall. And we'll have the barrel number on there, and also it'll be a single cask at cask strength, which I'm very excited about.
That's up my alley. I love a good
And that
cask.
that info will be on batch.info.
Yeah, we'll put all the info up there so people can find out all the things. Yeah.
Everyone in the chat's getting excited.
I know. We all love cask strength everything. Like,
Oh yeah.
Same. And what a fun experience to be able to see what the whiskey is like in its,
Mhm.
not infancy, but as it matures and before it's blended out with other whiskeys.
yeah, that'll be really fun. I'll have to watch for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, your photographer is fantastic, by the way. Whoever runs your Instagram, I don't know. They just make it look really good.
I will pass that on. Yeah. We have Sam and Greg, and they're both really phenomenal. So we're lucky to have them.
They're not shy with the saturation, but it works.
I'll let them know.
Oh man.
So I'm trying to think, like, one of the things I try to think too is which one smells the best, right? And I'm thinking so far, I think the bourbon one is my favorite smelling of the 3, but I haven't decided which one is my favorite tasting of the 3 yet. I think all three of them are very unique. So it's very much a opinion thing, but I'm interested to see what the Cuvee smells like in 5 more minutes, the way that we kind of saw the other ones change.
That one really evolves.
First impression, like in terms of like picking favorite smell versus favorite taste, I think the Cuvee smells the best. I like that cherry note, that black cherry note. But I still think I prefer the Bourbon Cask. I feel like it has a little bit more like oomph for it. Like the finish and like the maltiness like work really, really well together.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
It's between sherry and Cuvee for me, for sure. And I kind of knew that was going to happen because they're my preferred casks. But the sherry has such a nice, strong, God, it's got such a beautiful nose. And it's now that it's developing a little, I'm getting just a touch of that struck match head sulfur kind of thing, which I know is kind of a controversial thing in whiskey, but I love it. I look for that in a sherried whiskey. I think it's fantastic. So I'm digging this. Yeah.
I do get that though. I get that now that I've gone back to it.
Sorry, Clifton, do you like peated whiskeys? I don't know if okay. How about you, Amanda?
You know what? The first scotches I fell in love with were peated scotches, believe it or not, even though I'm like a bourbon, like sweet bourbon guy, but like, I don't know, something about them just are so intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
They're transportative. Like I always feel like when I've got the right one, Lagavulin was one of my first.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the ones that made me fall in love with it. Yeah, the Lagavulin 16.
I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff with sea spray in my face and a smoky campfire behind me. And that was years ago, but I haven't forgotten that feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it was only about a year ago for me the first time I had it because I had like a tasting set. It had Lagavulin 16, Talisker 10, and one other one. And I remember like it was the first time I had got that kind of like briny kind of note, which you said like salt air, sea air. And like you said, it puts you right there. It's like, to me, it was like standing on like a dock or something, like watching the ocean. Like I loved it. And I always have a bottle on hand because of that.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Trying to decide. God, I gotta say, these are both really good.
Yeah.
The sherry and the STR, or the Cuvee, I should say, are.
Yeah, I know. I maybe I prematurely said which one was my favorite because I just poured more of the Cuvee one. I'm like, ooh, I said it smells good, but it tastes real good too. So I don't know. I'm very excited for the last one to see how they all work together because I haven't tried the original yet, so I'm excited to get to that.
Oh, really? Oh,
nice.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to go back to it after trying the parts. Just like you said, Amanda, I think that was a good call. I think that'll be fun. Well, actually, speaking of which, so I mean, we could go into the last one if you'd like, and then we can kind of fiddle some more. So.
Yeah.
I'm planning on blending my own blend at the end too to see if I can.
I'm all about that. Yes.
See if I can earn the master status of blender. Just kidding.
I bequeath it to you.
Could you conceivably blend the three of these and get close?
Absolutely. Our rough ratio would be 50% of the former bourbon cask, 25 sherry, 25% Cuvee. We flexed it a little bit, but yeah, that's your base to start with.
I think we all need
too much of the bourbon. Oops.
I've heard with some blenders, it's 90% consistency, 10% improvement. Would you say that's the same for you, or is it you just go for consistency?
I think we're always improving. And something cool that we do is for consistency, we hold back a little bit of our former batch for the next one. So for example, this is batch 3 that you're about to try. So we named this in honor of Nancy Fraley. And it has as a base starter for it, batch 2, which was named after Dr. Jim Swan. So we select the additional casks, blend it together or vat it. And as we're reducing, we're pulling samples, looking and saying, okay, it's almost there. I think it just needs a little more of this type of sherry or a little bit more of the Cuvee or bourbon cask. And then it's like landing a plane. We describe it as, we're getting closer and closer to the runway and it's almost there with that 92 proof. Same thing with the cask selections.
Okay. So I wanted to point out this question by Eric. Any chance of doing a light whiskey with the used barrels?
Potentially. We've got a lot of things in the works right now, so it's not in the immediate queue. Every year we want to do a single cask release. So this year we're doing the Cuvee cask at cask strength. And then next year we're going to do one of the sherries and kind of rotate through. So we've got some fun plans with those. We also have some crazy experimentals that I'm really excited about. Just having 5 or 6 different cask aging in really unique barrel types. But yeah, light whiskeys are really fascinating. And we've had some inquiries from even other countries saying, hey, would you help us out with making a light whiskey? So we will have a couple of what we're now calling FB2s. So these are the bourbon casks that'll have their next life in with us. So we're keeping an eye on those whiskeys to see how they're doing.
So could you just, for the audience, could you explain what a light whiskey is? I am the whiskey dictionary. I like to try to...
Yes. So typically, I'm going to talk about South Korea for a second, if that's okay. There's different palates for whiskey, and light whiskey is a relatively new category. I think it came out in the 60s, and it was our answer to the trend of vodka, really. And so there are different countries in the world now that are really digging this version of whiskey, and it kind of straddles that line. But to be honest, for us, we are so into the American Single Malt category and know what we want and what we're driving for. So with our profile and everything right now, I don't see that on the immediate horizon, but it's almost like a sessionable whiskey when you think about it, right?
Depending on how high they go, I've had 73% light whiskeys. Those are definitely not sessionable.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of people were pushing vodka at the time as a way that you could just have it during lunch and nobody would know. I mean, one of the brands would do the tagline, if it leaves you breathless, because you wouldn't be able to smell the vodka on their yeah. So same concept in certain Asian countries. It would be like, this is a lower ABV. You can go out for lunch and drink a couple and nobody will be any the wiser. So
that's interesting that it's been around so long. I feel like there's kind of like a bit of a resurgence of it, because I honestly didn't hear people talking about light whiskey until the past year, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so many brands coming out with it. I know Uptanium, I think, is a brand that's coming out with it, and I'm seeing it pop up more and more.
Yeah.
I honestly credit it to that hard seltzer sort of.
Okay.
I think there's a tie in there, but something else fascinating to me is the love people have for pop culture and how that weighs in. I mean, you saw that through the 80s with vodka. I mean, and it was coming through from everything. People were watching like Miami Vice in the 90s. You got Sex in the City. But then by the 2000s, we had Boardwalk Empire and Mad Men, and suddenly speakeasies and old fashions were back in. And it's just really interesting to see how the swings come and go. I mean, there's always been a love for single malt, but at times it was considered like a very premium white men in the boardroom, So yeah.
See, the great whiskey lock of the 80s when no one could get their stuff to sell.
Yeah.
I would figure that the current whiskey boom was more related to the boom of beer distilleries, and people just kind of taking it to the logical next step of making whiskey. And I don't know, because you can only have so many IPAs in the world.
Yeah. Eric made a good point that light whiskey shows the fruit forward spirit with slight barrel impact. It really does. To me, I'd rather play chemist myself, and I mean, in Scotland they call that releasing the serpent when you add the water, and you really are transforming the spirit, and you're able to pull out things that you wouldn't otherwise see. So I think he's spot on. I get a lot more floral, fruity, and vanilla notes the more I add water to reduce our whiskey.
Out of curiosity, how many times would you have to distill in a pot still to get it up into that 160 plus proof light whiskey range? Did you have to do like 5 times or?
Potentially. Well, so we double distill, and in our first distillation, we get 20 to 38% ABV. And the second time we get up to 78%. So I'm thinking, I haven't done this personally, but yeah, it could potentially take 4 or 5 runs on the pot still. You really want a column still for that.
Yeah. All right, shall we? If you guys haven't already, let's dive into this one. I could immediately from the nose of this, though, you could pick out kind of the components of these that I never would have had I not just had the 3.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
I'm always nervous when I drink like components and then I drink this because I'm always worried it's going to be a jack of all trades, master of none situation.
Mm.
I'm very pleasantly surprised by this nose.
Yeah.
The caramel comes out from the bourbon. You get a little bit of the fruitiness. You get a little bit of the nuttiness. It's all there.
Yeah.
Maybe try it, Ed, 'cause I would say the
think
same thing about the taste of it too. I'm getting very, very like balanced between. Like, I'm seeing certain elements of each of them. I think the finish leans more towards the sherry, but I think overall it's like super, super well, a great blend of them.
Thanks.
Yeah, I find it some of like the lighter tastes you're getting from the Cuvee and like the mid range, like almost like a equalizer. Right? Like you get the high end Cuvee, then the bourbon, and then the sherry is down in the deeper flavors. But it's interesting that you can pick them all apart. Obviously, that was on purpose. You weren't going so much for the melding of the three, because I don't think it would have done as well if they all were completely melded together rather than layered.
Agreed.
So hopefully that was on purpose, but it worked either way.
I've always imagined it like a symphony. You know, you've got the different sections and you want to hear them. You don't want it to all blend together and become this cacophony. You want to be able to go, oh, I really like that melody coming through over there. But the harmony is what, really matters.
Yeah.
I think I am super pleasantly surprised because that blackcurrant note I was getting on the Cuvee is coming out on the finish big time on this guy, and it's making me super happy because honestly, that blackcurrant note plays so well with the caramely vanilla-y from the bourbon barrel. That's awesome. Like it's really cool. It's really cool. I'm super into this one.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Ed getting excited about a whiskey is one of life's simple pleasures.
I can see that.
You should see me when I see a puppy. I go nuts.
Oh, same. There's nothing better than whiskey and dogs. Oh, I have to tell you this. So every year we've set aside a cask, and all the proceeds from it go to a different charity, and the team's gotten to pick. So the first year it was local first responders, but the second year was the SPCA, almost home nearby. And I even wrote a cocktail called Man's Best Friend, and all the proceeds from that cocktail also went to the SPCA.
Oh, that's so cool.
Nice. That's great.
Right?
That's fantastic.
In the arms of an angel share. I don't know. There's something there.
Need that song playing.
Man, Sarah McLaughlin really just ruined poor sad puppies.
Happy puppies. Only happy puppies.
Right.
So I'm gonna try to make my own blend and see how close I can get to that. I know it's gonna
That's a fun idea.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
I'm gonna grab another glass. I'll be right back.
We're gonna try. So you said 50% bourbon, roughly 25% of the other two.
Yes, that's a good foundation to start with, and then tweak from there.
I'm glad I only poured half of these things.
As I'm running really low, but you know what? I'm gonna try to make it work.
Yeah.
All right. So half bourbon. Let's see.
Funny story about light whiskey. I see people are still talking about it in the chat. I was doing something the other day, and I thought I poured myself a bourbon at 40 some odd percent. Turns out I poured the 147 proof light whiskey from Obtainium. I struck it, I knocked it back. I was like, oh no.
Oh man.
Just blowing flames. Well, I had that hazmat from Iron Root that they sent along. It was like 72.7 or something like that.
I love those guys.
It was just, they're awesome, but it was just like, it was incredible. Easily the highest ABV one I've ever had. But
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Jeffrey asked when our tasting room will be open. We are hoping late spring, early summer. We are currently under construction for a new vatting house, which will be right behind where the visitor center is. So we've broken grounds and the pieces are coming in for that. So that's our next
really
step. Yeah.
do you guys, so not necessarily, let me put it this way. I would love to see, like, do you have a vision of what that looks like? Do you guys have like a architectural, like, I'd love to see what that's going to look like.
So the outside of it, when we were getting started, we had a dunnage style cask house. It was built into the earth and it could only hold up to 600 casks, which was not big enough for us. So we built two more metal clad cask houses up on the hill, which hold 6,000 plus each. So we converted our dunnage style into a bottling house, which I love. And the idea is to match that to be almost identical for the vatting house. And we had a meeting 2 weeks ago. It was Jerry, our one director, and then myself, and then Brian Hersey and Dustin Castor, and we own Eric Scar. He's our bottling lead. So the 5 of us were in this room, and we're drawing sketches of where we think all the vats should go and how we want to pipe everything directly from the vatting house into the bottling house. We were such geeks about it. I felt like I was personally living through Christmas Day, like on repeat. I was so happy because I've wanted this for years, and it's finally happening. So I can't wait.
Now, were you guys going for a dunnage style to try to reduce some of that evaporation, or would that have even made much of a difference? Or
we thought it might, and we also really like the look of it.
Yeah, it is kind of like old school. I think it's a neat thing.
Yeah,
moss growing on your barrel.
Yeah, exactly. So it had an earth floor, gravel, and then earth. So it was fun. Yeah. Ooh, plans to distribute out to Washington. Yes, hopefully before too long. And in the meantime, we rely on Mash and Grape, our online retail partner, to ship whiskey there.
Yeah. So in the event that whoever ends up winning the giveaway, if you happen to live in a state where they don't ship, we'll work something out. So don't worry about it.
You get a bottle of hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Well, not to pat my own back, but I feel like my blend, it took a little perfecting. I noticed it was a little too sherry forward, so I add a little bit more of the Cuvee. But if I let it sit, for a while, I'm pretty happy. So maybe I should explore other career options.
I think you should. This is great.
I gotta say, my blend is a little flat. I'm missing something, and I'm trying to find a way. I'm thinking I need to add more sherry to it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do that.
Well, see, that's what I thought. Mine was the opposite thing. I think I had too much of the sherry, so I tried to balance it out a bit. Either way, I mean, your blend is obviously better. I'm just saying.
I had lots of time to work on it.
Yeah.
I went heavier on the sherry and the Cuvee than the bourbon, kind of knowing that it wasn't going to match up, but I like mine anyway.
That's all that matters.
Now it just tastes like sherry.
So we just got to buy all 3 bottles and do our own blends. More money for them and also more whiskey for us.
That sounds good to me. And are the 3 finished bottles, are they as tall as the regular one?
Yeah, in fact, look, there they are.
Oh yeah, the whole collection.
Oh, I might have to get those on my shelf then.
Aren't they pretty? Yeah, they're also
chocolate. I was thinking because these little miniatures that we got in the sample set, it looks like a cute little chocolate bar. I love it.
Yeah, they do kind of look like that. Yeah.
Actually, these are what are these 4 ounces? Maybe they're huge, or are they just skinny?
Are they? I think they're just skinny. I think 50 mil, right?
Yeah, they should be just 50 ml.
Oh, it's just because they're tall, though.
It's just because they're tall. Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is.
Well, everything's got to be tall. It's got to be. It's got to be the Superman.
Does anybody in the chat have any questions for Amanda? You've got a very talented blender on the line. You can ask whatever you want.
So the cask strength that you guys are planning to release this fall, is that going to be also available online to order, or is that just distillery only?
That should be available online. So we'll definitely update it on our website too. So Jeffrey asked about as the master distiller. We don't have that title on site. So I was tasked with creating a sensory panel. And so, yes, I do the blending, but I also work with mostly Dustin Castor. He is our production manager, and Brian Hersey, he's our cellar and warehouse manager. So the 3 of us collaborate on every cask selected that goes into the different batches that we've done. And then, of course, we like to get the whole team involved. So sometimes I'll do a fun Friday, is what I call them, and have different samples for the team to look at and write their thoughts down. So it's really fun to do that. And yeah, get very geeky.
That's awesome.
All right. So just real quick, I'm going to pick the winner in 2 minutes. So if anybody would like to get their a last minute super chat in to be entered to win one of these finished whiskeys, go ahead and do that now, and I'll make the call in about a minute and a half. So
I got a question.
Please.
Amanda, do you have a favorite out of this bunch, or is that unfair?
Oh man, it changes a lot. the one I was least excited about going into it was the bourbon cask, but it surprised me the most. And I love that you still get so much fermentation esters and character from the malt coming through. It's really fun for me to just walk around nosing it for like an hour. So I do that a lot.
I can totally see
happy. That. Yeah. I'm very weird. I'll just curl up with a book and be like, coming back to this whiskey.
You know what? Like whenever you see any of these like head distiller or whatever you want, like they're always walking around with their nose in a glass. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the job. Actually,
it really is. My desk has little samples all over it, but always a glass or two. It's just, yeah. But when the craving hits, it's either sherry or cuvee typically. But you know, the flagship, I think it's just really. I worked hard on it, and I think the whole team did, and it really it's a labor of love. So that's always gonna have a big place in my heart. So
well, it definitely shows up. You can tell, like, as much as I joke about my own blend, like you can tell there's a lot of work went into this, and I think it turned out really, really well.
Thank you. I'm so excited to share it. It's been half a decade, working on it. Oh, that was a fun question from Eric. How long have I been doing this, and what prior experience led to this position?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I was, of all things, an English major and worked with nonprofits, the Virginia Aquarium for a while, and had zero plans to work here. I loved traveling, and I loved whiskey and food. I loved the combination very much. And I was part of an online book club, and somebody in the book club said, hey, there's this distillery opening in Virginia. We should check it out and have a meeting there once they're open. And I was like, it's going to be bourbon. I know it. But let me just check them out. And I saw they were going to make American Single Malt. And I don't know what hit me, but I'd written a cover letter and sent my resume in before like 5 minutes had gone by. And I didn't even know what they were looking for. I had no idea. I thought maybe I could volunteer on weekends or I don't know, but I was just so into it. And they were back and said, we want to build a visitor center. And they liked my experience, I guess, with the aquarium and all of that. And so I was brought on board in 2015 to build a tour and tasting program. So I hired the team and I needed to educate myself. So I'd done the Bourbon Trail. I did later on a trip to Scotland, and I just worked with as many people as I could to learn as much as I could and read a lot. And the first person who came into my life and really saw that I could be a blender was Nancy Fraley. She trained in cognac and has her own blending company in Berkeley. And she works with Iron Root, which you mentioned earlier, and some other amazing distilleries. And she really puts people on the map. And she said, hey, you've got a good palate. I'd like to work with you. So I've gotten to work with her at ADI in Denver and at Iron Root even in Texas, in Denison, Texas. We went down and did a blending seminar, and it's just been really fun. So when the time came, we needed to start working on selecting casks. I just rolled right into it. And it's been years now, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm still learning and growing. I've tried to take classes, WSET and other things like that, but mostly it's just been boots on the ground.
Nice. Are you planning on doing a sample set like this?
Yes, it will probably be pretty limited. If you're in Virginia, it'll be easier. We'll probably have that retailing for probably the end of April.
Okay.
So we'll probably post about it on Facebook or our Instagram, and then hopefully in the future we'll be able to do something for other markets too, other states.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because it's such a fun way to just, most people haven't tried blending on their own. And I think that's just like a fun way to do at home, you know?
Yeah. It is. Yeah. I get really geeky about it. And I feel like people want to know. They want to experience it themselves. So what better way to do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think that there's a whole lot of options for exactly what we did tonight. So I think that's something that you guys can have that's a pretty unique experience. So very cool.
This is fantastic. I love the idea of being able to sit down with all the components and then the final product and seeing, it's fantastic. I love it. You should sell this as a consistent, like a worldwide thing, because I think this would sell awesome.
I think it would.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on.
All right, so I'm going to pick the winner real quick. So I just have a random number generator. It was 1 to 100, but I put 1 to 10. That's how many things. So just whoever I pick, just trust me. Number 6. So let's see. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's Jim Morris. So Jim, send me a email at thewhiskeydick, DIC, @gmail.com, and I'll get you a bottle. Let me know which one you want. Actually, you can go to their website. You can find all 3 of them, or 4 of them. Sorry. Pick whatever you'd like. Let me know, and I'll send it out to you. So
awesome. Congrats, Jim.
Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. This was really, really fun. I'd love to have you back, especially maybe when you get that cask strength out.
It's a plan. Let's do it.
Awesome. Clifton and Ed, thank you guys very much for joining me here tonight. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Great guests as always.
Happy to come on anytime.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Well, cheers. And everybody go buy Courage and Conviction. We're not BSing you. This stuff is really good. So, cheers.
Cheers.